Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming back to Think Theo Season 5, where our theme this season is Don't Wait. And I was just explaining to Natasha, I did not wait. I just decided I'm going to do another season. It's been 3 years, and I'm just going to get on Zooms and talk to people and then publish them. So there's not any formality here. We're just talking as friends in grief and sisters in Christ. And I'm just so thankful to have this woman in my life. We don't get to see each other. We've never even met in person, but we're on social media and we're always following each other. And I met her through social media, I'd say about 2 years ago. And we text occasionally, but she has an amazing story, an amazing testimony. She's a grief advocate, she's a certified grief educator. And I know what that's all about. I'll have my education, my certificate in 2 weeks. And she's an author, speaker, podcast host, and she now has two books out. She has Can You Just Sit With Me, which released, I think, about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and which about the same time as my first. And then now she has Black Woman Grief, and that has released in February, right?
Yeah.
So she is going to take over and tell us all about Natasha Smith.
Oh, thank you so much, Theo, for that amazing intro and just taking this time to sit with me and inviting me on just to chat again and to share. But yeah, I just love any opportunity to just come on and kind of share my story. Again, grateful to just connect with others who get it, So I'm just so grateful that God connected us a few years ago, and just being able to follow you and follow your story and follow just how you're able to encourage others as well, across the globe. So it's just been amazing. But yeah, my story is that I sat with grief for over 30 years, not knowing what to do with it, how to process it. I just stuffed it, pushed it to the side, and then 2020 showed up for everyone, right? And we didn't know what to do but sit in our house because we were told that we had to. And so we were left there to deal with our emotions. And my emotion at the time was all the grief that I stuffed away. And so 2020 was a time when I started to really process the grief. And a way that I did that was through writing. And so from that season, books were birthed.
Yeah, I always tell people I'll be writing and I look down and my fingers are wet and I'm like, what is going on? And then I realized there's not a leak in the ceiling. I'm
Yeah.
crying and I didn't even know it while I was writing.
Yeah. Yeah. So much processing.
Yeah. So I have listened to your audiobook. Can You Just Sit With Me? And we have both experienced multiple loss.
Mhm.
And so you want to just walk us through some of your losses and when you made the decision to turn your meaning into purpose and when you just knew the Holy Spirit was like pushing you to write this book for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the losses includes the death of half of my immediate family. So my dad and two of my older sisters. And again, it's been over the course of a few years, but in, still like a succession of losses. It's a little overwhelming, but so it includes my dad, two of my older sisters, the murder of my nephew, and then babies to miscarriage and stillbirth. And then even when I was a teenager, 17, I placed a child into adoptive care. So that's another type of grief, which is called disenfranchised grief that, if you saw me, wouldn't know that I'm grieving that, but I grieve that every single day. And so just a succession of losses due to, loved ones dying. But then there's the living losses, right? Those things like dreams and transitions to career transitions and those sort of things. And so a lot of loss, but I never set out to be like, oh, I'm going to turn this pain into purpose.
Right. No.
Yeah. But Holy Spirit, yeah, God with me inside of me and just walking along this journey with me. Yeah, I was just kind of prompted again, as I mentioned before, I kind of started writing about the grief in 2020, just little pieces of it online. And then I was just noticing how much it was resonating with people. And then as you were mentioning as well, you're writing, you're crying, you're processing it. It's lethargic for us, but then I think of that scripture. It's like, we're able to comfort others with the comfort that the Lord has given us. And so that was been the big main thing. It's like the Lord was with me. He never left me. He was there through all the time when I thought I was alone. And so I really took a deep dive into one, understanding what grief is,
Yeah.
because people don't teach us this, right? And that
No.
was one reason why I wanted to become a grief educator, because we don't learn this. And so I think it's like up to us, people like us, to teach people and bring more awareness to it. And so it was important for me to learn about it, and then learn what the Bible has to say about it. Because again, being a Christian, growing up in church, I did not hear these things. I wasn't taught, like, God truly cares about my pain and the grief that I carry and the sorrow, and how the Bible is threaded with death, loss, grief, sorrow, pain, suffering, all those things. But most often, what you find on a Sunday morning may be, more of the joyous type, encouragement, which we needed, but we need it all, right?
Yeah.
We need to learn how to hold both grief and joy, and sorrow and joy. So yeah.
Right. And so often I feel like society can't handle sad. It
Yeah.
can't handle that emotion. And
Yeah.
that it we're just sad. People, we're just sad. If you're grieving a loss of something, a job, a pet, a human, your loved one, a friend, a family member, if you're grieving something, then you're just sad. I got
Yeah.
labeled as suicidal, I got labeled as depressed, and I was like screaming like I'm not any of those things.
Yeah.
I'm I still feel joy. I still know that Jesus is inside me in my heart, but I'm just sad. Can I just be sad?
Could I just be sad? Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, again, that we do. One of the reasons we do what we do is to help people to feel like they're not alone. Like, you're totally normal. These are normal and natural
Eh,
responses to loss,
Right.
right? Oh,
I love your book. Can you just sit with me? First of all, the title is amazing because that's the number one. And what I've learned in my grief educator certification course is the best thing that you can do, which I didn't even know. I was baptized by fire on all this loss and grief
yeah.
stuff, but I just knew from my experience when I would tell people the best thing you can do is just to be with me. You don't have to talk, you don't have to bring me a gift, you don't have to cook, just sit with me. That's the best thing you can do. And so when your book has that title, I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, that's it. That's all you have to do, people. You don't have to do any big thing or say any big thing. Just sit with me. So tell
Yeah.
me how you decided, like, that title, I'm going to write this book.
Yeah, I love what everything you just said is so true. It's like that ministry of presence that we it's taken for granted, really, and we don't understand it as much. But yeah, the title came out of 2020, literally. So when the world was like on fire. There was so much going on, right?
It
And
was
so I
ending.
was literally like, people were kind of how it is today a little bit. Like, people were shouting at one another, and every time you turn on TV, you saw death. Like, you were literally seeing bodies carted out of places. And so, I was literally what I was seeing on the outside was how I was feeling on the inside. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm carrying all this grief and heaviness and darkness, um, and the grief is shouting on the inside. But in the same token, it was like when I was seeing people just shouting, having these shouting matches, whether on social media, on the media, or just everywhere you scrolled, I'm like, our heart's cry is to ask someone, can you just sit with me? Like, not to give an opinion, not to give advice, not to judge, but literally to sit with me, to say, I see you, validating the feelings, witnessing the pain that I'm going through. So it was really out of a heart's cry during that season of, can you just sit with me? I'm hurting. Like, this is hurtful. This is painful. And so, you know, and it was, I think I made like a post using it as almost like a poetic type thing. And that's actually in the front of the book. And then from there, I just sat on it. Like, I didn't use it at all because I wasn't even planning on writing a book. And
Me
then,
either.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then later it kind of developed, and I was like, oh, that's the title. That's it. That's what we need. I mean, like you're saying, we experience these things, and then it's almost like our education catches up with our experience.
Right. That's exactly what's happened because in this class, I'm like, oh my gosh, I already was doing this. But now
Yep.
I knew that there's like a whole lesson on it. I'm so thankful that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was feeling the right thing.
Yes.
But your first book, the Can You Just Sit With Me, has all of the Bible verses that go along, and that's what I love, y'all. There's, if you're listening, there's scripture to back up everything that she's saying. So the Bible does talk about hard times and loss and grief, and Jesus wept.
Yeah.
And so the Bible does address sadness, but we do often, back in the old days, my daddy would talk about, he was a preacher, but he'd talk about the revivals that they would have. And they would talk the darker parts of the Bible, to
Yeah.
bring people to Christ. But now we kind of, and I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but we kind of have fluffy sermons. Occasionally we'll bring in the hellfire and brimstone, which is what, how I was kind of raised with
Yeah.
that. But I think we need it all. We need it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
You have to, as Dolly Parton says, you got to get through the rain to see the rainbow.
Mhm.
So I feel like we've got to understand if you're not going through something right now, there's somebody in your circle that is. And everybody has a pain and everybody has a hurt. So tell me, Natasha, when did you decide to write the second book? And tell me about that.
Yeah. It's so crazy because again, it was still kind of birthed out of that same season of trying to process everything. Like I'm still processing, literally, like to this day, I'm still processing because it's just been so much, right, to
Yeah.
unpack. And so this is one of those things that came out of that processing. So in one of the chapters of Can You Just Sit With Me, when I'm talking about 2020, one thing that my agent had brought to my attention, she was like, you're just you every time you talk about that, you're just so, you just seem even more passionate about it. Like I'm literally in tears. I was in tears talking to her, and she was like, "That might be something that you want to kind of write more about. Maybe write the book about." And so I didn't want to write the book, but I did because I was like, I kind of describe it as the sequel now to, I didn't think about it in this way when I was writing it, but it's kind of like the sequel to Can You Just Sit With Me? So for Black women grief, it's like my experiences as a Black woman, um, and the grief that we experience. So I like to say this, that grief is grief, right? We all have this, grief is the natural response to loss. And so we're all going to grieve at some point over someone or something. Yet the types of losses that we experience vary. And so for Black women, we experience different types of losses, and even um, generational, like passed down, which is so crazy. The research that, I did when writing the book. And so the book kind of was birthed out of just recognizing that there are different types of losses that Black women, and me as a Black woman, have experienced, has experienced, and continuing to experience because of just being a Black woman, which is so crazy, and just making space for that. And then for those who aren't, Black women, it's a resource to be like, oh, okay, I can learn more about this, whether it's a ministry leader who has Black women in their congregation, or a therapist, counselor who are actually have Black women as their clients, just to be more educated in how to serve better. So it's just that type of resource to help Black women feel seen, heard, understood in their grief for the types of losses that we experience. And then for those who support them, like, can you just sit with me? That's why it's like just
They
kind of
complement
falls.
each other.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to order that one. I haven't yet. I'm going to order that one, but I want you to sign it for me. And I want
Yeah.
you to sign my first one, which I've got here on my shelf. But I'm so glad that you mentioned education because that as I was in the grief educator certification class, I'm realizing how much I'm learning. And if I'm learning stuff when grief has been like my counterpart for 6 years in July, like grief, like I'm the grief girl right now, I feel like.
Yeah.
And if I'm learning stuff, then there's so much that we should be teaching our younger kids. They should have a class in school, honestly, like an elective class that has to do with how you will deal with loss and grief. Because even in high school and middle school, elementary, these kids will experience loss.
Yes.
And all that, I believe schools are doing right now is counselors and, but if they were a little more prepared, a little more proactive, then it would, I don't know. I just feel like if you have a better foundation in something, you can handle it better. So I did a research study recently, and Gen Zers, the 21 to 27-year-olds, 80, I think it was 82%, I can't remember exactly, so people don't hold me to that, are not grieving outwardly. They're hiding their grief. That's our 21 to 27-year-olds. And this is scary, people. And let me tell you why. That generation they're having families. They're starting families. So if they don't know how to grieve properly or healthy, I'm not going to say properly,
Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah.
then their children are not going to know how to grieve in a healthy way. So we're just snowballing this grief crisis in America.
Wow. I love stats. So I'm glad you brought that up. And that's so crazy and so wild to think about.
And I don't
Wow.
know if it's because of social media. I think that's a huge part of it. Or if it's just that maybe, the generation that was before them, their parents didn't really teach them about grieving. You said you were in church all your life, but you never really knew. My parents went through loss, and my daddy preached thousands of funerals, and I was always right there on the row with mama at all these funerals. I understood death, and I never knew a time of not knowing Jesus, but I never really understood grief. And daddy would go visit people. We'd go visit people, and I'm like you. I always just kind of heard about it, but I didn't really know it was a thing or that it was actually addressed. I
Yeah,
didn't understand the verses in the Bible that talked about it.
exactly. Yeah, I think I mentioned this on another podcast, but I wanted to mention it here when you were speaking. So we would have Wednesday night Bible studies, and
Yes.
we would have, like, the people go around and say prayer requests and stuff like that. And so someone would always say, we're going to pray for the bereaved family. And I was like, who is the bereaved family? They lose someone every week.
Mr. and Miss Bereaved.
Right, because I didn't know. Like, no one explained what bereaved meant. And then so I thought they were saying bereaved, like the bereaved family.
Bereaved family. Oh,
Yes,
that's cute, Natasha.
right. But it still, like, brings awareness to, we weren't taught. No one
Yes.
told me, like, bereaved family is the family they just lost someone to, no one explained that to me.
Oh
As a
my gosh, the bereaved family. They just keep losing
They
people.
just keep losing
So
people.
funny. That's
Poor
funny
family.
and cute. And
Right.
I know, I get it. Daddy would always say on Wednesday night, we'd have Bible study, and then,
Yeah.
yeah, we had prayer service right after. And
Mm.
he'd always say, any unspoken request
Yeah.
where you don't want to mention what it is, but you're going through something.
Yeah.
And, still, if somebody raised their hand, I felt like they didn't want to. But daddy said, everybody has something going on, and you may not want to talk about it publicly. So I felt like that was my dad's way of talking and bringing people to say, hey, if you've got a loss, something
Yeah.
that's hurting you, like all that stuff that was hurting you your whole life and didn't even come out until COVID,
Mm.
all people have something. And mama always said, don't think that other people have it made.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through something. Mama said, you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful, like you, for those lessons we got. As I believe you and I are in the minority of people that are with a strong Christian foundation. And so, because of that, we're able to help people now. People that didn't have a strong foundation, they're the ones that we're sent to help.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you are sharing what you've had in your past with other people that are who you once were.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Theo. I feel the same. Yeah.
I love your TikTok. You've done really good on TikTok. I've watched you grow on TikTok. So if y'all are TikTokers, get out there because I'm the one that told her you need to get on TikTok.
Yeah.
I said, you got to get on TikTok. I didn't want to. I was very hesitant. I just can't add one more thing. Social media, y'all, for those of us that are out there trying to help others, it is really hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. You got to post it on Facebook and then you got to send it over to Instagram and then you're getting threads and then you got to go to TikTok. But TikTok is kind of its own animal and Natasha's doing really well on there with her videos. So y'all need to check her out. It's I'm Natasha Smith. It's I am Natasha Smith.
Yeah.
And check her out. And I also want to talk about we've still got some time. I want you to go back in your past if you don't mind and talk about some of your losses and what got you through at that time. You didn't know all these things that you know now, but what do you think got you through at that time? And you can pick any loss, just tell us about a time that you got through a loss without knowing what you know now.
Yeah, I can, yeah, I'll just pick one. So my oldest sister, Angie, died when my sophomore year of college. And at that time, no, I didn't have, no one in my peer group had any kind of loss. Like no one in their families had died. So no one really knew what to do with me. So I just act normal, like
Right.
just kept going on. But what I found is that busyness was my go-to. Like I
Mhm.
kept busy. Like I was in college. I didn't need like money, like I had financial aid and that sort of thing, but I had 3 jobs. 3 jobs
Wow.
and was going to school full time. So I had a full course load, but I had 3 jobs. That should have been like,
That's
what's
that's a
going
red
on here?
flag. That's a red flag.
Red flag. And it was my way of distracting myself, keeping busy. And I was like presidents of clubs. So I had extracurricular activities going on. Like I was literally hardly ever at my dorm or apartment. Like I was always doing something. And so I think business was my go-to um, for just trying to not deal with the grief. And
Then when
so
you start to,
obviously,
yeah, then when you start to educate yourself, you're like, oh man, I was messed up. I was doing all that to avoid feeling or dealing with the pain or,
exactly. So that's one of the things now, like even I'm learning about even more is that that's why it's hard to slow down as grievers. Because when we slow down, we're needing to sit with our thoughts more and sit with the grief more. So it's like, this feels uncomfortable, but it's necessary to be able to process and to actually be on that healing type journey. So yeah, but it was such a big thing for me. And even now, I'll find myself being like, okay, but I can recognize it now.
yeah, it's honestly, it's like, I don't know if I did myself a good thing or not, because now I do recognize when I'm doing those behaviors.
Right?
I'm
Yeah.
like, why did I bring on season 5 podcast when I'm so busy? But no, I'm not saying
I know
I know
you're
my
saying.
limits. And
Yes.
I actually now, and people, you might want to do this. Natasha, you may already do this. I will see my calendar and I'll be like, whoa, it's crazy. But I will go in and I will block off days so that I can do self care.
Mm.
And that self care and taking care of ourselves is so important. And so I schedule self care days. I have at least one every 2 weeks. And I don't go and pay a lot of money for spa treatments and stuff, but I'm just going to go. I might go to the movies. I might just read a little bit of some books that I haven't been able to read. I might just stay at home and cook all day. I love being in the kitchen. So I do schedule out some me time because I know that I'm able, and I put my phone away. So I'm able to kind of sit with myself in my current grief and kind of reanalyze where I'm at so I can move forward better to serve others better.
Mhm.
Do
That's
you
so
do you do
true.
some self-care?
I do. It's become it's still so hard for me. And so it's like I have to make you have to be super intentional about it. But I can definitely tell when I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's
Yes.
like, no, I need to, okay. It's almost like you have to reset when you get to a place where you haven't done the self care, you haven't done the journaling, you haven't made the time or made the space for grief. It starts to show up again in the way you interact with others. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, you need
That,
to
that
kind of,
that's another reason I did the podcast. This is
mm,
forcing me to sit and
yeah.
talk and not to just constantly be busy or getting editors what they need. This is just forcing. So if you're listening to a podcast, you are exercising a form of self-care. You're listening and doing that. So tell me about your family and where you live. Tell me, what's I don't even know right now if you ask me what state you're in, if I could say it.
Yeah. So we're in North Carolina.
That
And so we're
I
on
would
the
have
East
got it
Coast.
right.
And so married and we have 4 kiddos. We have a blended family. So age ranges from 18 to 8.
That's why you can't do self-care. That's why it's so hard. You are exhausted.
It's
Hmm.
true. It's true. With summer out, I'm like, with school out, and we did have our first to go off to college. So she got 1 year of college underneath her belt. She's home for the summer. She actually has the little one, which they're so cute, being 10 years apart, but they're so she took her to the pool today, or she's been taking her to the pool. So, but yeah, it's a lot. And so
A
yeah,
lot. That is a lot. Oh my gosh, that's why you're so busy. Well,
yeah.
what do your kids think? Do you ever talk to them about all this, what you're doing? We're talking about educating. Do you ever talk to them? I try to talk to my daughter. She is um I always say she makes a great attorney because she doesn't show emotion. She is not like she doesn't like emotion. She just, but she does tell me, Mom, I have a counselor and I'm grieving healthily, so stay in your lane. Because I'm
Okay.
always like, I don't know if you're grieving. But do you talk to your kids about what you do?
Kind of like organically. So,
Yes.
so like right now they know I'm on the podcast, interview.
Okay.
They know I've written 2 grief books and that I am in the grief space. I talk a lot about grief. Because even if they hear something on TV, they're like, "Mom, it's grief."
Oh, good. That you're
Yeah.
training them up well.
Yeah, and even though I want to say 2020 was a time when that was like the first time I let them see me cry, which was
Oh,
crazy
yeah.
because I was still like not, keep it to myself, be strong for everybody type of mentality. But I couldn't escape the room because I was homeschooling at that time, and I couldn't. It was my sister Sharon's birthday, and I just couldn't get out of the room fast enough. And so my youngest at the time was 4, 5, 6, one of those ages, and she grabbed my arm and was like, "Mom, what's wrong?" It's like, "I'm just so sad. My sister, your Aunt Sharon, it's her birthday today, and she's not here." And she was like, It's okay, mommy." And so for that was so huge for me because it was like they get it more than we do. It's like you have permission to grieve, and it was like giving me permission to grieve. And so I think it's been really huge for me to be able to take what I've learned to help with their emotions as well. Because even I like to share the story of the missing Lego for my youngest son, which he's 14 now, but when even younger, if he missed like one Lego out of a gazillion, he would almost lose it. And so instead of being like, "Oh my gosh, it's just a Lego," no, it's huge for him, so we have to still give that same attention and witnessing and validity to the pain that they feel when they lose something. And so,
Oh,
yeah, so I think that's a part of the teaching that, when we lose something that matters to us, no matter if it matters to someone else, but if it matters to us, then we're going to feel the pain of that. And so we should honor that. So, yeah.
absolutely. The missing Lego. I love that.
Hmm.
And they brought this up in that grief class that I'm in about, if you've had multiple losses, people will ask you, well, which one was the hardest?
Oh,
And
mhm.
why does it have to be a competition?
Yeah.
Each loss is hard
Yeah.
in its own way. They don't grief doesn't need to be a competition.
Yeah.
And just like you were talking about, it was important to your son, that Lego.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you know what, and like they'll say like losing a spouse is the hardest loss, losing a child is the hardest loss, losing any loss that you are experiencing and you've got grief over is your hardest loss.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I
Yeah.
loved being able to say that, you know,
Yeah.
and we almost live in a society where we can't even say that.
Yes. I love that so much because I learned the exact same thing. And we may have gone through the same,
Did you do David Kessler?
yes,
That's
yes,
what I did.
yes, it's amazing.
Isn't
But yes,
he? I love
that blew my mind. That blew my mind because I don't know about you, but I get those comments like in threads sometimes or in the comment section where someone, not even me, would say, I lost my child or I lost my dad and I'm, blah blah blah, and I'm feeling this, and they're telling about their story, and somebody comes and replies to them to say, well, nothing beats the loss of a child. And I'm like, no, my gosh. But then because of my education, it's like, oh, her grief hasn't been witnessed enough.
Right. And that's, I was like, when I learned that when people say things like that because their grief hasn't been witnessed enough, that that just was like, oh my gosh, then what I'm doing, what you're doing, Natasha, these are all the right things that we're doing because people need their grief witnessed. And I went down a rabbit hole a few months ago when my research study was being worked on, and I started researching all the um, shooters of the US, all everything that's happened in our shooting history. And I went down this rabbit hole, and almost everyone has experienced a form of loss.
Mhm.
You know, there was the guy that killed the insurance CEO. Remember, he
Yeah.
had experienced the loss of his mobility through medicines, and I don't remember exactly. He lost his friends in his surfing, I believe it was in Hawaii. So he
Mhm.
lost his friend group, he lost his mobility. There was a loss and a grief, and he didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just like, we've got to start, you know, dealing with. But then
Yeah.
I got back to my lane, Natasha, and I realized I'm not going to be able to handle that. I'm going to stay in my lane, and if people have any questions, they can come and talk to me. But we've got a grief crisis here, which is contributing hugely to the mental health crisis.
Absolutely.
And so I think the more that we talk, the more that we do podcasts, the more that we write books, the more that we go out and talk about those books, and the more, number one, the more that we let God's love through Jesus, his son, shine out in our lives, that testimony cannot be, that testimony is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a friend, a Christian friend, that told me very early on in my loss, she said, you can go one of two ways. The world is watching.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, the world is watching me. So I've got to do something. If God's using me, if I'm the called,
Mm.
then I'm going to do what he wants me to do. And we have to listen to those whispers. We have to pray more and make sure we're on the right path. But I'm like you, and I know you're going to agree. I'm on the path that God wants me to be on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so good. Mm.
I'm so thankful that you came on today. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I want you to tell people how they can get in touch with you and where your books are that they can order.
Yes. Thanks again for having me again. But you can find all of my books or both my books at wherever books are sold. And then you can connect with me across social media at I am Natasha Smith, and my website, I am natashasmith.com.
Yep. And I'm going to put all this information in all the goodies with the podcast, everybody. And thank you so much, Natasha, for joining me. I know that time is precious, especially for a mother of four. Bless you. And thanks again for being on and sharing your story with Think Theo and with everybody out there. And remember, everybody, the theme for season 5 is don't wait. So get out there. If you're on the fence about accepting Christ in your life, don't wait. Don't wait. Go and talk to somebody. You can contact me or Natasha, and just experience the joy that he has for us through his son. Thank you, Natasha, so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.